Thank you to all of our panelists, and welcome to each of you. It's so good to see you again. So thank you for joining us. And we have about 15 minutes remaining, and there's so many questions about the amazing work that you all presented on, and questions around integration of best practices with religious norms and taboos, questions about how do we develop resiliency. And so I'm going to ask each of you to respond to this question, and it is, considering the various axes of sexism, racism, economics, migration, poverty, and social marginalization, what tools from your faith community have been provided to you to help shape your response to people living at those various intersections? And Christo, why don't we start with you? I see you first.
Wow, that's a tough one. Thank you very much for putting me on the spot. Are you asking this question in the broader sense, not only HIV focused?
I think that's the intent of the person's question, yes. Considering everything that folks are dealing with, how do we keep their attention on HIV?
Yeah. What has been provided? Well, I would rather want to start to say, I think there's great opportunities for us to actually reinvigorate our integrated approach, right? So I hate the word integration because that normally means elimination. We've seen that so many times, even in my own organization. We have tried to integrate HIV into everything, and it very often disappears. But I think if we have to think again, with the rise of racism, xenophobia, climate issues, and so on, and the impact of that have in enhancing violence, etc., it does provide us as activists a new opportunity to start to demonstrate how that links to HIV and calls for us to have a response on it. So I instead of just saying what has been provided, I think the question to us as people who are still holding up the flag is, how do we continue to help people to say, when you talk about climate and how that is leading to violence against children, we must also ask the question, how is that excluding children from accessing treatment? And how do we do that from when we do it as Anglicans or people from Islamic perspective, how do we do that to our individual groups or organizations to challenge them to pick that up?
No. Thank you. Thank you for that. Others, your response? What tools have you gleaned? Yes, Waheedah.
Yeah, so I would like to respond. So RACMA is an organization in the United States reaching all Muslims living with HIV in America. We have an annual retreat in Washington, D.C. And the Washington, D.C. Mosque is always a part of that retreat, and that the religious leader, the imam, comes to our location and he opens up our retreat with prayer. And then we also we attend the Friday congregational prayer at the mosque, and during that time he brings someone up from our organization, from RACMA, to speak to the ummah, to the community. And that person is a person living with HIV, and everybody stops in their tracks because after the prayer everybody's leaving. But once that person, this was just this last summer, once that person went to the podium and said, I'm a person living with HIV and I'm here to talk about HIV, everybody sort of just stopped in their tracks. And so then we had a whole day. We did HIV testing. We were able to talk one-on-one with some of the community members, and that was very empowering. And that imam at that mosque continues to have that format, that he's promoting HIV testing from the podium, that he's including HIV as a part of his health literacy. I think that's important. The other thing I want to mention is that the mosque that I attend virtually in Toronto, Canada, called the Unity Mosque, is a feminine affirming and LGBT affirming mosque. And so women are encouraged. So you talked about marginalization. I feel like I'm one of those marginalized Muslims because I'm a Muslim living with HIV. So I'm encouraged in that mosque to deliver the sermon, to do the call to prayer, and any other religious traditions that we have that I wouldn't normally be asked to do in a traditional mosque. So I see, and I believe that these sort of things, inclusivity is always going to be one of the ways that we go to have religious foundations established that they really care about people, right? If you really care about us, then like, you know, let us be involved. So I think that inclusivity is something that all of our faiths could work on, making sure that we are part of the planning, a part of the process, a part of the evaluation, right? But meaningful involvement of those who are most impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Prashad and Naro?
Yeah, I like to come here. So yeah, I think for me there are three most important things when we are talking about the engagement and then the addressing the HIV issues. Engagement, empowerment, and inclusion. We have built a system where the both communities are separated. Even the religious groups are also separated. They are never been engaged to talk about HIV, sex and sexuality. So that has created the more problem. And then if we make a mechanism where these two can come together and to address the problem, I think that would address a lot of the problem that currently we are going through. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, we can't hear you, Naro. You may be on mute.
Sorry. No, I was just about to share what Prashant just shared, and he already shared for me. I was also thinking about engagement and empowerment, and also about meaningful involvement of the communities. I think that's what we should look at, and not just tokenism. Not just tokenism, but actual meaningful environment in terms of planning out, in terms of planning any activities, in terms of providing services related to HIV or any or marginalized community. I think involvement of the marginalized community is very important, and engagement is very important. At the same time, again, empowerment is very important. And when I talk about empowerment, it's just not the marginalized community, but again, the church leaders or the faith or communities should also be equally empowered. Thank you.
Very nice. Equally empowered. People living with HIV, people who are on the margins, should be equally empowered. And I'm going to stay right there with you, Naro, for a second, if I can.
Okay.
And this is our final question that I'd love for all of you to respond to. And it's this. If people are feeling down right now, if people are feeling hopeless right now, if people are feeling defeated right now, what words of wisdom would you share with them in this moment?
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what actually they say, but even if someone is feeling down, or if someone is in the situation, I think at the end of the day, what I do from my personal experience, I talk to God. Despite my various weaknesses, God always listens to my prayer, and I think that helps a lot. So yes, talking to someone who is down, talking to someone who is depressed about God, and this thing, will not be applicable everywhere, but I think somewhere it does make a difference, because it did made a difference in my life, because my life before and now it's quite very different. So I think talking about hope, talking about living life positively, talking about living a healthy life, talking about, you know, overcoming obstacles, accepting whatever it is, whatever that comes, accepting it. I think acceptance is very important. So I think that should happen.
Thank you. Waheedah, are there any words of wisdom that you would want to share with others around the globe at this moment?
Absolutely. I just want to remind all of us that there's always a mercy in whatever we're going through. There's always a mercy. My husband, who is a Christian, always says to me that God always makes a way of escape. So to understand there's always a mercy. And I just want to share a saying of the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him. He said, "Nothing afflicts a believer of hardship, nor illness, nor anxiety, nor sorrow, nor harm, nor distress, or even the pricking of a thorn, but that God will expiate his sins by it." So we have to go through to get through, right? And I just encourage everybody just to hold on. And now it's like the young lady said in the song, don't give up, don't lose your hope, right? So just continue to struggle, continue to fight, and always understand that there is a mercy. There's always, after hardship comes ease. There's always hardship, and then after hardship comes ease, and this too shall pass.
Oh, I'm on mute. My apologies. Either one of you, Christo or Prashant, my apologies.
Okay, well, while I'm unmuted, let me go. I want to say three things. The one is, last week was for me a very emotional week in a way, because last week was when I was living with HIV for 33 years. That's a blessing. Man, I'd never even thought that could be possible. So just in terms of, for every one of us, you are sometimes in the midst of no look forward. For me, the important part was to allow, in this whole journey, was to at times allow people to be there for you. So I want to encourage all of us in the times of hardship to also embrace people who are around you and allow them to be there for you. The second thing is, what I wanted to say is pointing to this painting behind me of my daughter. She's now 17, but she painted this when she was 16, about the refugee crisis and the thing, how it touched her heart, what happened in the Mediterranean with refugees and migrants and children on the move who was exposed to it. So it's removed from HIV. But what I'm trying to say is there's a new generation of young people who are activists, who are people of faith, who look for opportunities also to come alongside others and to raise the issues that we had carried as older guys for a while, that are looking for the opportunities to come alongside us. And if we feel lonely in our way that we have to carry this for a while, we must invite these new kids in. And the third thing for me is, I want to just encourage us all to hold on to what in our faith, like you've said, Waheedah. For me, one of the things that carried me always in our team, in our response in Channels of Hope and World Vision, was the verse in the Bible that says, "Now to him who's able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine." That we hold on to that God that goes beyond our own thinking. And trust. His timing is sometimes terrible, but it's always good.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Christo. Prashant, any words of wisdom?
Yeah. Actually, we are at the worst time. We are going through at the worst time. Everyone is going through at the worst time. You are seeing people every day having a difficult times. You become so discouraged at times when the system are so fragile and so despair. You see disparity or inequality in your community. When your member from my community don't have access to certain services, you feel so discouraged. People who are appointed to deliver the services are sleeping at home. There is so much of discouragement. But then still, despite of all these challenges, look around, you'll find a people, which makes you feel like you are not alone. During this COVID times, I've known so many wonderful people who have reached out to us selflessly. We lost 4 peers, 4 very close friends of ours. There are so many in verge of dying, so many. But then rather losing hope, rather losing that resilience, you have to reach out to a people, you know. And at times what I do is like during this time also, I try to self-reflect and try to be more compassionate toward myself. I cannot be harsh. At many times there are so many difficult times that you become so hard to your own self. So you need to be relaxed, Things are difficult, but then there is a way. And most important is that I'm not alone. I have a very, very good friends around me. And I see a lot of answers from the mother nature, I look at her, she gives everything without asking anything. So I'm part of her, and I'm here to, at least not to give everything, but at least I can do something so that at least one life can be saved. So yeah, and my words of wisdom would be, basically 3 things that I've always carry with myself: compassion, tolerance, and love. These are the 3 mantras that I carry with myself all the time. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank each of you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for joining us from across the world today. I just want to remind you of 2 things. One, to complete your evaluation of today's sessions and of today. And then secondly, to join us tomorrow. Don't forget that tomorrow's link is a new link, but we definitely want to see you back here tomorrow. And if you have friends who would like to join, please tell them to get registered and join. And we will be working on some accessibility challenges that have been identified for us. So thank you for raising those as well. We take that very seriously. And I want to say to all of you across the globe, good night, good afternoon, good morning, and we will hope to see you again here tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.